Hi there, my name is Jen, and thank you for joining me today on the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel. Today I have a really fun video using some awesome Spellbinders products. And basically, I'm going to be making a few cards using some faux wax seals products from Spellbinders. So if you want to get in on the wax seal craze, but don't want to deal with the wax and the melting and all of that, this is a great alternative. So the products I'm going to be using today are going to be the Sealed Blooms dies. There are 5 dies in that set. I'm going to use the Faux Wax Seals, which is a stamp and die set. And then I'm using this gorgeous 3D embossing folder from Spellbinders called Origami Folds. And so I'm going to go ahead and start out by taking a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock and wetting it on both sides just to help prevent cracking. And because this is a 3D embossing folder, it's a little bit thicker. The only thing that I'm doing differently from my regular sandwich for my Big Shot is I am removing one of the plates. So I have the embossing folder sitting directly on my mat, and then I'm putting one plate over that. So there's not a plate on the top and the bottom, just on the top. And for my machine, that works perfectly. It goes through nice and smooth. I love this folder so much that I made several different variations of it. One using white cardstock, one using kind of like a craft cardstock, and then this really pretty blue cardstock. And so I went ahead and I splattered these with a little bit of gold metallic watercolor, and then I'm going to go ahead and start my seal. So I'm going to start out just using the solid seal and then the one that cuts the circle out in the middle. And so I'm going to go ahead and grab my papers and start running those through my die cutting machine. For the one that cuts out the circle in the middle, I am going to go ahead and stack several of those to create kind of more of a realistic wax look, I guess you could say. And so I started out with 2 of these die cut pieces, glued those together, but I do end up adding a 3rd layer later on in the video. And then I'm just going to go ahead and match that up with my paper. You can match it exactly like this, or you can kind of move it around so it kind of has a more of a realistic look to it, I guess you could say, where it's not perfectly matched up. For mine today, I just went ahead and stuck with matching them up exactly with that solid die piece. And so I'll go ahead and create one of these seals for each of the panels that I have already created. And then I will also be using the circle die to go ahead and create the next step in the process, which is the actual design on the seal. So there are several designs that you get in the stamp set that is from the Faux Wax Seal stamp and die set. And so I'm going to start out first with the butterfly. I'm going to be using some heat embossing for each of these seals just to give it a raised look. So I went ahead and I prepped my paper with my anti-static bag, and then I'm going to go ahead and ink that up with some VersaFine and stamp that. And then the first one, the butterfly, I am heat embossing that one in gold. And so I'll go ahead and finish that up and set that aside. And then for the other 2 cards, I went with a white for the thanks seal, and then I went with a clear for the flower. And then I'm going to take that circle die that comes in this set, and I'll go ahead and cut out each of the images that I have stamped up, and then these will be placed in my layered wax seal. And this is when I decided to go ahead and add one more layer to that outside edge. I could have left it, I guess, and it might be a little bit too raised, but I think either 2 or 3 layers on that kind of the outside edge of the seal looks really nice, and so I just opted to go with 3. And so here are each of the seals with the image adhered in the center. And then I'm going to start working on the actual assembly and putting together the cards. For the first card, I went ahead and I took a circle die and cut out that embossing folder background, so it's just the circle. And then I went ahead and I grabbed the Sealed Blooms dies. There are 3 kind of floral pieces, and then you've got another die that does just the flowers. And the reason it's separate, the flower pieces are separate, is so that you can cut the entire piece out of a piece of green cardstock if that's what color you want the stems, and then you would just color up the flowers like I'm doing right here, and those are adhered on top of the flowers. They match up to the flowers that are on the stems. The color that I used for the flowers on this card are, the color is RV10, and it's a Copic Chow, and then I used a Copic marker in E50 to do the center of the flowers. And I found it easier just to keep the flowers in the paper that I die cut them from. They didn't punch out right away, and so I just kept them in there. It was just easier to color them up and then add those centers with that still attached kind of to the paper. And then once I have that done, I'll go ahead and push those out, and these are going to go ahead and be attached to the stems. And I kept it really pretty easy and simple. I didn't want to worry about a lot of like color matching or color coordinating. So a lot of the stems, or actually a majority of the stems on the cards, are all white, with the exception of I do several green stems as well. I think the green stems actually look awesome because it really sets off the color of the blooms of the flowers. But again, this was just I wanted more of a subtle look for these, and so this was just a really kind of easy way to do that. And then for this, I went ahead and I grabbed some silver twine, taped the piece to the back, and then I'll go ahead and wrap that around and then add a little bit more tape. And then I will add that seal. So this seal says thanks. And I went ahead and added some foam circles, and I'll just go ahead and add that directly over kind of where those stems meet in the center. And then I added some 1/4 inch ScrapbookPal tape to the back of the circle. And I use this to adhere all of these just because the embossing folder is 3D and it is not smooth. The ScrapbookPal tape is an awesome tape and it's super strong. And so that was my choice for adhering all of the pieces and the panels to the card bases. And then I'm adding a little bit of white splatter here. And then on all of the seals, I went ahead and I took some glossy accents, and for this one I'm just doing it around the edge, just kind of to give more of a raised look, more of a realistic seal look. And so I went ahead and set that one aside to dry. Spellbinders also has this really cool die that will give you the look of kind of like the twine without actually having the twine. And this one is called a sealed twine die. And so I went ahead and I cut out 2 pieces, and then I added a little bit of gold metallic watercolor. And so I'm just adhering that where I want the seal to be on my card. And then for a really nice and clean look, if you fold that over the edge, it just cleans it up really nicely. I went ahead and I cut off the end part because you're not going to see it, and I didn't want that extra bulk. But I did just use tape to go ahead and adhere this to the back of my panel. And then this is a card that I'm going to use a butterfly on. And so here are the green stems. The color that I used for the flowers on this is B000 in a Copic Chow. And I just went ahead and I placed those over kind of the center circle of that sealed twine die piece, and then added some tape to keep that in place. And then I again used some foam on the butterfly. And for this I added glossy accents around the outside and the inside, and I'm just taking a little bit of gold glitter and sprinkling that in. Another thing that would work great for this would be some gold flakes. They will just kind of stick into that glossy accents. And those are the 2 cards that I went ahead and showed the process for. The third card is basically the same. I just colored up the flowers. I followed pretty much the same process and added some gems to that. And then I also wanted to show you how to use the stamp set to make some seals. This is another great way to make some seals specifically for things that you don't want a lot of bulk on. So I am going to add these to some envelopes. And so what I'm doing is I went ahead and I first took the solid stamp and I stamped that up in a Catherine Pooler hot tub ink. And then, so that's going to be the lightest color. And then I took the next darkest color, or the medium color, which was Meant to Be by Catherine Pooler, and stamp that up. And then now I am stamping up kind of the highlight area, which is going to be the darker color, or the darkest color ink that I have in this set, and it is called Skylight. And then I am going to use the stamp from this that says Handmade, and I really love that stamp. You can use it not even with the seals, you can just use it on the back of your cards. You could stamp the handmade stamp and then like sign your name. And I wanted the image to be raised as well on these, and so I went ahead and I stamped these up with some Versamark embossing ink, and then I added some gold embossing powder, and then I'll go ahead and take my heat tool to get that embossing powder melted. And then to go ahead and cut these out, I am using the solid die that comes in the set. You can use all three of the dies and layer these just like I layered the other seals. I chose to keep them flat though, so I just used the one die. And the die is a little bit smaller than the stamped image, so that there is no white border, because you wouldn't want that look on the seal. And so I'm just going to go ahead and show you how I'm going to use these seals. They're perfect because they're flat, they don't add any bulk. I added a little bit of score tape to the bottom and the top, so I just went ahead and I adhered the top for now, and then when I go ahead and mail these out, I will remove the score tape on the bottom of that. And that's going to do it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please go ahead and give a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Scrapbook Pal YouTube channel. The design team has lots of inspiration every week. Also, if you're interested in any of the products that I used today, I will go ahead and leave links for those products below in the video description. There is also a blog post over on the Scrapbook Pal YouTube channel with a quick read and the products as well. So if you're interested in that, you can head on over to the blog to check that out. So here's just a pop-up of the cards that I created today. As far as the embellishments I used on those cards, I used some Pink Fresh Studio glitter drops in champagne and in gold. And I also used Pink Fresh Studio's jewels in glacier. And that's going to be it for me today. Thanks so much for joining me, and have a good one.